Tonight, the government reveals its strategy to protect women and girls from violence, claiming the problem is a national emergency. Action will be taken to tackle so-called toxic masculinity and more resources given to authorities to tackle abuse. But is the plan joined up and is the money available to make it happen? Also ahead tonight, Christian Turner has been appointed as the UK's new ambassador to Washington, as the vacancy left by Lord Mandelson is finally filled. The Scottish Parliament is rocked by a new scandal after allegations that an MSP's office was bugged by one of their own staff members. The Bank of England cuts interest rates, but what does that mean for the future of the economy in 2026? Our economics editor Ed Conway will get out his crystal ball. And as an MP's Christmas card is subjected to a controlled explosion by police, we look at the others from the political domain that probably deserved the same fate. Well, all that and more getting us in the festive moods tonight is Dawn Butler and Daisy McAndrew, who'll be with us for the next hour. It's Thursday, I'm Darren McCaffrey, live from Westminster, and this is the Politics Hub. Very good evening and welcome to the programme. We're going to get on to all those stories in just a moment. We're going to start tonight with a developing story, the latest revelations on Jeffrey Epstein, with the Democrats on a congressional committee releasing a new cache of photos and documents relating to the paedophile financier. That, of course, is all ahead of this deadline tomorrow for the Justice Department in the United States to release the entire cache of material. Let's go live to Washington, D.C. Speak to our US correspondent, Mark Stone, who's there for us. Mark, very good evening to you. Talk us through what's been released today.
Week, I should say, and another release of documents by the Democrats on the House Oversight Committee. There is a Dropbox link that just appears randomly. So we've been waiting for days now to see whether there would be another release by the Democrats on the House Oversight Committee. And it came quite randomly at lunchtime, a Dropbox link released, and then in it, not a huge number of images, but certainly some interesting ones, and I'll take you through them in a moment. The context, though, is important. The context of the release, they were done by the Democrats, as I say, on the House Oversight Committee, as an effort to try and pressure the Trump administration to release all the Epstein files, which they have said they will do. Trump has already said he has asked the Justice Department to do that by tomorrow. So we will potentially tomorrow be in a position where we will have thousands and thousands of documents, the actual Epstein files released. This is not them. These are some files, some images, not all of them. Let me begin with this. There is disturbing stuff in here. I should warn you of that, first of all. And there is no context surrounding precisely why the Democrats have chosen to release these. This is a screen grab of a text message exchange between two people. We don't know who those two people are. And I'll read it to you. It says, I have a friend, Scout. She sent me some girls today, but she asks $1,000 per girl. I will send you girls now. Maybe someone will be good for Jay. Now, is Jay Jeffrey? That clearly is the inference. And then there is a list of the particulars of this 18-year-old woman: name, age, height, measurements, weight, Schengen, that's Schengen visa. Are they able to travel across Europe? What that's referring to there? Departure city, Russia. Now, potentially linked to that exchange, again, we don't know who that exchange was written by or sent to, are the copies of passports, all women. The redactions, incidentally, have been made by the House Oversight Committee, not by us. There is a Ukrainian passport here, a Czech passport, another Ukrainian one, a South African one, Ukraine, an Italian one there, a Lithuanian one there, and a Russian one there. So, again, we don't have the context of who these passports belong to. Those names are out there, but they haven't been made public. So the House Oversight Committee does know the names and ages of the people who owned those passports. There's also this passport, Darren, which is the passport of one Jeffrey Epstein. And very interestingly, another page of the passport has been photographed here and it shows the designation that was in his passport. The bearer was convicted of a sex trafficking of a sex offence against a minor, it says in here. So evidence there that Jeffrey Epstein had in his passport the designation that he was a paedophile. There's more stuff here, images of him with well-known people. Of course, association with Epstein does not equate to guilt. He is here with Woody Allen in a picture. Bill Gates here with an unidentified woman. Jeffrey Epstein here on an aeroplane with a woman whose face has been redacted. This is Sergey Brin, who was the co-founder of Google. There are various other individuals here as well, and an image here of Jeffrey Epstein with some women who look to be young, and they are sort of surrounding him. Again, their faces have been redacted by the House Oversight Committee. Lastly, Darren, I will just show you this, which is a document that is the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office Department of Corrections inmate request. It appears to be, and we're just going through it now, it appears to be precisely what it says. Inmates can request something for their person, things like property or food, and other has been ticked here, and the request is love of my life, and then it appears to sort of detail what looks like a poem. We're going to go through that and work out precisely what it is. Again, no context as to why this particular bit of information has been revealed to us. And then very lastly, I did say that was the last thing, this is images of writing on an unidentified woman's body. The writing, Darren, is quotes from the book Lolita. Once again, no context surrounding that. But all of it, of course, is related to this man, Jeffrey Epstein, now dead, died in prison in 2019. And the extent to which the scandal, the wrongdoing surrounding him, the extent to which that affected and impacted and connected with many other people.
Extraordinary stuff indeed, Mark. And all, as you say, this ahead of the actual release from the Justice Department. Mark Stone, as always, thank you very much indeed, live from DC there. Thank you. Now, let's bring you another bit of breaking news this evening in relation to a US ambassador for the UK. A new appointment's been made, Christian Turner. He's going to replace Lord Mandelson, who, of course, was sacked from the post back in September. John Craig, our chief political correspondent, is here to tell us, frankly, who this guy is. I've never heard of him.
Dr. Christian Turner, he is described by the Foreign Office as one of their most experienced senior diplomats. He's a Mandarin's Mandarin. This is a victory for the Sir Humphreys and the senior diplomats in the Foreign Office over the politicians and ministers.
Well, given the previous appointment, that's maybe not somewhat a surprise.
You will recall that here on Sky News, when Lord Mandelson was appointed, Peter Kyle, from the cabinet, said it was decided he was worth the risk. Well, what a risk it turned out to be. I mean, of course, this was somebody who had been forced to resign from the cabinet twice, said, I'm a fighter, not a quitter, and then quit to become a Brussels commissioner. And, of course, quit in disgrace. Now, Dr. Turner has had a fairly stellar and, I think we can say, unblemished career. He's had all sorts of diplomatic appointments, served in Pakistan, Kenya during that dreadful terrorist attack, served various ministers going back to Tony Blair in 97. He's 53, father of two, looks younger, doesn't he? But anyway, the PM has said that...
I don't know whether that's a bonus or not, but there you go.
He talks about the PM talks about his extensive experience as an outstanding diplomat. And Yvette Cooper says he brings exceptional diplomatic experience, talks about strengthening partnerships across the world. Now, Mr. Turner says, according to the government announcement, it talks about the historic partnership with America, rooted in common values, shared security. He says it's a pivotal time for the transatlantic relationship. And he says he looks forward to working with President Trump's administration and leaders in Congress, business and society. Now, I should say, he beat two quite senior rivals. The Prime Minister interviewed three people last week, obviously Christian Turner, along with Varun Chandra. Now, he is the Prime Minister's business advisor, said to be the architect of trade agreements. As a SOP, he's going to get an expanded role as business advisor, including taking a lead role in talks with the US. Then a late entry was the current ambassador in Moscow, Nigel Casey. But it was clearly felt that he needed to stay in Moscow, and a few things happening over there. Volatile relationship with Putin, Ukraine war and all that. So Dr Turner is the winner.
The Mandarin's Mandarin, as you put it,
They will
John.
be popping the champagne corks in the
FCO.
in the Foreign Office,
okay,
yes.
John.
And cracking open the Ferrero Rocher.
Well, it's the week before Christmas, isn't it? Let's bring in our panel for tonight. Labour MP for Brent East, that's Dawn Butler, and of course the broadcasting journalist, Jason McAndrew. A very good evening to you both. Dawn, are you happy with this appointment this evening?
Well, I don't know Dr Turner, but he is an experienced civil servant, and apparently he's fully equipped to handle the president of the US. I don't know what that actually means, but so I think
Someone's got to be.
Yes, I think it's a good appointment, of course.
I mean, he's got a very big in tray. As John was saying, he's been in the States already, and he did quite a lot of the prep work for Keir Starmer and the Labour government to make friends in the White House and so on. So he does have very good contacts, but we've got potentially, well, hopefully, a state visit from the King and the Queen next to 2026 to coincide
going to the United States.
Going to the United States, which is a big deal for the ambassador in the United States, because he or she has to be the one that makes it work and gets some trade deals behind. I mean, obviously the Foreign Office and DCI and so on will be working behind the scenes, but it's a lot to do, and you want to make that a really successful trip.
Keir's already sort of laid the groundwork for the trade deals as something that Keir's done right at the very beginning when he first became Prime Minister. So I'm sure that Keir's made sure that he'll be working side by side with Dr Turner, and they will make a success of it.
But of course, as we all know, Trump is not an easy man to negotiate with, because we all thought it was a great success after the state visit here in Windsor, when Trump came over and all the tech bros were saying they were going to pump loads and loads of money.
And now that deal's on the floor.
And now that deal is sort of in the deep freeze. So
but it's not in the deep freeze. But there is discussions. But don't forget the reason for that, and that is because we've put in place really stringent legislation around the online harms bill. And when you've got a country that's saying we don't want to protect children and online harms, then that's not something that we should be saying, oh no, we're okay. We'll throw all of that out the window.
That absolutely is the sticking point. Yeah.
OK, for the moment, guys, thank you very much indeed. Because we're going to turn to what is our top story tonight, and that is one of the key pledges at the heart of this government. It is to have violence against women and girls in the next decade. And today we finally had the long-promised plan on how to tackle that commitment. The Prime Minister says that the strategy begins with a whole-of-government, whole-of-society effort. Promises include teacher training to spot the early signs of misogyny, a crackdown on so-called notification apps, and a dedicated rape and sexual offences team in each police force. But the plan's not landed without criticism, with some raising concerns over whether the investment put behind it is simply enough. First tonight, here is our correspondent Molly Malone, who has been looking at the report.
So psychological abuse, economic abuse, tech abuse, physical.
What teenagers are being taught is changing. At this school in North London, they're taking part in a workshop about healthy relationships.
You're such a flirt, and that just annoys me.
Role-playing scenarios to help them navigate life outside of the classroom. We'll start seeing more of this as lessons become mandatory, with the government's violence against women and girls strategy focusing on prevention, intervening early to challenge harmful behaviour.
We heard in the workshop phrases like toxic relationships, toxic masculinity. Does that sort of reflect what you're seeing online?
Yeah, of course. I feel like most people have experienced it, and it's not a good feeling, and it's good to learn how to deal with it and what to do in that situation.
Online, sometimes they think it's like, oh yeah, this is like socially like right to do, like this is fine. And then you learn from another person, like an expert, and like, oh no, this is type of like manipulation, this type of abuse.
Ministers are trying to tackle the attitudes of boys in particular, with specialist training for teachers and plans to refer those as young as 11 for misogyny classes. And outside of the classroom too, working with tech companies to clamp down on image-based abuse.
We used to think a young person in their room was safe, and now they're not safe. They're at risk of things like sextortion, so being pressured into sending intimate images, or even deep fake, so it isn't even an image of themselves, but it looks so realistic that other people believe them.
The government want to prevent, but they also want to stop what's happening now, with promises to improve rape and sexual offence investigations in every police force and better support for victims too.
This strategy is different. It deploys the full power of the state across national government and local government. It is a call from a government that recognises this as a national emergency.
This is a strategy that's been highly anticipated and long delayed. It comes with the aim of halving violence against women and girls in a decade. The scale of what confronts that target is massive, with around 1 in 8 women being a victim of domestic abuse, sexual assault or stalking in the last year. And while the intention to tackle it has been broadly welcomed, there are concerns.
Concerns particularly from victims groups, with fears that a focus on prevention could result in driving up referrals to services that say they're struggling, with some shutting down.
My largest worry is that the more it's successful, the more we drive and allow victims to come forward, we need to have the resource, the funding in place to be able to properly support them.
Every emotion in this room is valid.
This is a new approach for changing times, but still familiar questions remain about funding, resources and the scale of the problem. Molly Malone, Sky News.
Well, a little earlier, I spoke to Alex Davis-Jones, who's the Minister for Victims and Tackling Violence Against Women and Girls. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Now, you have set out this strategy today. In essence, what are you hoping? What is the government trying to achieve here?
So the government's ambition is to halve the levels of violence against women and girls over the course of a decade. And it sounds ambitious because it has to be, because we are currently living with a national emergency of violence against women and girls. We talk about numbers a lot, but these are women and girls who are going through the most horrific, heinous crimes every single day. 1 in 8 women in England and Wales will be a victim of domestic abuse, stalking or sexual violence. And that is wholly untenable, and the government has to take action. And this strategy that we've announced today is the most comprehensive look at how exactly we're going to do that, how we stop this from happening in the first place with prevention, how we go after the perpetrators of these crimes so that they are held responsible and accountable for them, and how we support victims and survivors when they have suffered these crimes so that they can rebuild and recover their lives.
Do we know why, as you say, it's this national emergency, and there's lots of very, very worrying stats out there that demonstrate it is a massive problem and one that in many regards is getting worse. Do we know why that is? What is the underlying reasons why it is such a massive problem in this country?
I wish I knew. I can guess and I can surmise that it is down to being desensitized to this, a lack of trust in the systems and support networks that are meant to be there to help when things go wrong, whether that be the police or the criminal justice system. So we need to rebuild all of that. It's also about education and teaching our young men and boys and our young women and girls that this type of behaviour is wholly unacceptable. We need to teach them about consensual, healthy relationships that are built on mutual respect. All of this is the answer and the solution, and it's going to take time. It's not going to be an easy fix overnight to change millennia of cultural ingrained misogyny.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons, I find this interesting, and the reason I kind of asked that question is because, at least superficially in this country, I mean, it seems at least to be a way less misogynistic society, in the sense that, in the 1970s, you needed your husband effectively to open a bank account, obviously on the awful situation that, you could rape your wife and it would not be regarded as rape in law up until the 1990s, which is extraordinary. So in many ways, in a historical sense, we superficially seem like a much less misogynist society. And that's then out of kilter, though, with those horrific figures that you've talked about.
Indeed, look, we have made huge strides as a society in terms of moving the dial and shifting the dial on equality, coming forward, getting rid of some of those archaic, horrific criminal offences that you've already mentioned. But there's still so much more to do. And if you scratch the surface, sadly, I think it's the case that we will all know a perpetrator of these crimes because the stats speak for themselves, the evidence speaks for themselves. And we've all heard that banter down the pub or a friend who makes a joke that goes too far. And that's how this slowly creeps in, and it slowly is deemed acceptable. And then that behaviour doesn't go challenged, it doesn't go unchecked, and then it gets pushed further and further. And there are many, many reasons why people perpetrate these crimes, and there's never an excuse for it. I don't want that to sound like I'm making excuses for this, but part of the strategy is really looking at targeting perpetrators directly with tailored programs, positive requirement programs, going after the reasons behind why they do what they do, whether that be trauma themselves, they might be victims themselves from childhood, they may have problems with drug and alcohol, with anger management. So it's really about trying to get them to stop their dangerous behaviour and then also preventing it from escalating.
And Alex, you're talking about there about, in essence, mitigating circumstances, but some would say the government should also kind of flip that on its head around women as well. I mean, there's a big argument that actually a lot of women who are in prison, who are being branded as criminals. I mean, the figures are extraordinary, how many of them have suffered domestic violence, for example. Why is that? It doesn't seem to be, at least, kind of core to the reports.
So you're right. The vast majority of women in prison are victims themselves. And I have visited, sadly, many women in prison since I've been in this position as Victims Minister. And that is why the government was determined to reduce this. The Minister for Prisons, Lord Timpson, has an ambition to close a women's prison. We've got the Women's Justice Board set up to tackle exactly why these women are being criminalised. Is that the right way forward for them? How do we look at maybe alternatives to custody for certain types of women? And I want to be clear that there will always be a prison place available for someone who needs it, for somebody who is a danger to society, regardless of if they're a man or a woman. But ultimately, the vast majority of women who are in prison shouldn't really be there.
OK, just two final questions if I can. I mean, the big question, of course, is this all sounds and is a very, very noble cause. I think there's hardly anyone who's going to disagree with that. But is it enough in terms of money? Because you can make lots of commitments, but you need money to make it happen. Dame Nicola Jacobs today, who is the Domestic Abuse Commissioner for England, saying the level of investment falls seriously short.
Well, I have huge respect for the Domestic Abuse Commissioner, but the Chancellor and the Prime Minister are both personally and fully behind this strategy. We're investing over £1 billion in victim support and in refuge spaces to help those fleeing domestic abuse have somewhere safe to go. We're investing 20 million in education programmes. We're investing in our police so that we have those high-level response teams really going after these perpetrators. All of this is happening not in a vacuum. This has been fully funded, fully costed, and we are determined to hit that ambition of halving violence against women and girls over a decade.
OK, Alex, and just very finally on this, we're all aware of the kind of Andrew Tate view of the world, that, sadly proliferates online. His arguments and others is, yet again, this is the government, society saying, it is men and boys who are essentially at fault for society's ills. And that's an argument that we know exists. We disagree with it, but we know it exists, and it is having influence on some men and boys. What do you say to take that on? How do you stop that argument from bleeding into kind of societal thought processes?
Well, that's part of the challenge. And the Prime Minister and I and the Deputy Prime Minister have all recognised that. On International Men's Day, just a few months ago, the Prime Minister announced that the Deputy Prime Minister and I would be hosting the first ever national summit on men and boys in the new year. We're going to be doing a bespoke piece of work looking at how we involve young men and boys in these conversations, but also looking at what opportunities exist for them. I want any young man, any young boy growing up today in 2025 or 2026 to have the world at their feet, to have all of the opportunities available for them. That's what a Labour government means. That's our determination. And I don't want to vilify men and boys. I want to bring them in as allies in this fight with us, because they're victims of this too. They are victims of what is happening with misogyny and the behaviours in our society, causing them to take on these harmful behaviours. And we need to bring them in this fight with us.
OK, Alex, we appreciate your time here on Sky News. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, that story, of course, is going to feature in tomorrow's papers, and we'll have got our extended press preview from 10:30 this evening with tonight's news and tomorrow's headlines. Joining us will be the political commentator Tim Montgomery, and the journalist and the president of the Murray Edwards College at Cambridge University, Dorothy Byrne. That's at 10:30 tonight here on Sky News. Let's bring back in Dawn and Daisy. Daisy, I don't think there's anyone going to disagree with this strategy in many, many regards. What's your sense, though, of kind of what is at fault here? How can you change things?
I think this is the problem. This is such a massive Pandora's box once you open it and you realise how many different areas need to be tackled. And as mother of teenagers, it's something that's been troubling me for many, many years. And I know the extent of what's going on in schools at the moment, of bad stuff that's going on from first-hand experience. And I worry that teachers haven't got the bandwidth or can't be expected to have the expertise to tackle it. But I don't have the answers, and I don't quite know why there seems to be more of an epidemic in this country than in other countries, or if that's true. That's what I read, but I'm struggling to find the data.
It's not true. The violence against women and girls is a pandemic. You had your earlier article about the Epstein files. That is violence against women and girls. It is actually a pandemic. But, in the UK, one woman is killed every 3 days by a partner or former partner. That statistic is not new. It's decades old, and it's never been tackled. So this is the first time that a government has said, we are going to tackle this issue, and we're going to look at all the drivers that makes this happen, and we're going to change it. And it's not just changing it at one end, it's like, how do we prevent it? And that's why it's important to go into schools. And you're right, the teachers need extra help, and that's why the government's providing extra help. But also it's very difficult because you don't know what's going on children's phones, the conversations that they're having. And, it takes longer and longer for teachers to settle a class. I had one teacher tell me that, it takes 15 minutes to settle the kids in a class. Another teacher told me that, a young boy asked her, have you been raped yet, miss? So when this language becomes normalised and desensitised, we've got to do something about it. And that's why what this government is doing is so vital and so important.
But at the same time, I don't know if you heard my question there about this idea that, look at what Britain was like in the 1960s, 70s, 80s. Now, it was legal to rape your wife until the 1990s. Yeah. In many ways, we've become a less misogynist. I was interviewing a guy today who literally goes into schools, his charity goes into schools to try and stop kids from this. And he said the vast majority of kids are great. He's like, he's saying, they're obviously small. Essentially what I'm trying to get at here is, do we, as I was trying to demonstrate, maybe risk branding lots of boys?
Well, yes, I know. Yes, of course, society has moved on and it is no longer mercifully legal to rape your wife and so on. But also other things have happened in society. Porn is much more prevalent. It's in every kid's phone.
That's rather than it being
rather than being the top shelf at the newsagents. And it's much more serious. We've got this issue that many people are now talking about of things that they see, things kids see in a porn clip, they now think is what's expected of them with their first girlfriend. We've got an epidemic of choking and all these. That's new. That's not old.
So this is weaving the story into why what this government is doing is so important. The online safety bill. That's why that's so important. Having age verification. Pornhub has seen a 70% drop in people accessing it because of that age verification. So this is where we tell the story of what the government's doing, and that's why it's important to talk about it. And it isn't like vilifying young boys or young men. What it is saying, this is the right way to act. Asking for consent is important. Even understanding consent of young children. If they say no, they don't want to be hugged by an auntie or an uncle, it's to understand that's their right.
Just briefly.
Just very briefly, I had to have a very awkward conversation with a child, not my child, but a friend's child, a teenage boy who had been sending photos, and he didn't have a sort of female role model, so I volunteered. And having to explain to him that was an aggressive, violent act, it was not a bit of fun, and that having to explain to him that what he's got in his trousers is not the same as what a girl has under their top. One can be used as a weapon and one doesn't. There's such fundamental discussions that need
to be... But remember, misogyny is very, very rife in the country, and toxic masculinity is very, very rife. But everybody needs to work together, and that's why we've also outlawed strangulation as well.
OK, for the moment, thank you very much indeed, because, as you say, it is a big, big issue. You're watching the Politics Hub. Up next, we're going to be talking more about the government's strategy to tackle violence against women and girls. We're speaking to the former Victims Commissioner, Dame Vera Bird, after the break. Stay tuned.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
They call him the king of the jungle.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Yusra Al-Baghir has this report.
And this is what's left of it.
As a woman of colour, how did the Harris campaign speak to you?
People risk their lives to speak to us for this report.
Mr. Zuma, Sky News.
We're trying to see as much as we can.
Welcome back. Now let's get more on our major story tonight. That we're talking about the long-promised plan from the government to try and tackle violence against women and girls. And as we saw just before the break, we're joined in the studio by the former Victims Commissioner, Dame Vera, who is with us. And a very good evening to you.
Hello.
I suppose my first question is, what have you made of what you've heard today?
I think it's a good start. I think it's reassuringly cross-departmental in a way that it hasn't been before. So I had a conversation with Jess Phillips a few months ago, and she said the way she was trying to attract other departments, you can't just shift in and make them change trajectory, was to try and find the line they were following and join it in. So she's done that excellently well with education. And obviously she's got, very sort of fertile territory talking to Bridget Phillipson, who's been involved herself with a women's refuge. And the programme, of course, is about perpetrators, prevention and support. So when we think about prevention, if we're going to try and stop, halve violence against women and girls within a decade, we better cut back the number of boys who are growing into men who will abuse women. So we need to get into schools in a very positive way, a newer, better view of masculinity.
So I think there's two questions there, which is, as you saw just before the break, we're trying to work out, where has misogyny changed, I suppose, is probably one of the really interesting thing here. And I think we kind of all seem to think that it kind of has changed.
It's gone underground far more, hasn't it? So you wouldn't hear quite such, raucous comments as you would have heard a couple of decades ago. And as you were saying, it's no longer lawful to rape your wife, and also you don't have to have your husband to sign to give you a mortgage. All of that's disappeared. But attitudes that have not significantly disappeared. And what I think has just got much, much worse is the sort of pounding from social media that all young people feel they must have because they need to be like everyone else. And some of that is incredibly unsavoury. And unless there is a sort of counter force of a positive kind, then inevitably young boys will think, you know, strangling somebody to have sex with them is what everybody's doing. That's the way to do it. He doesn't know any better. Unless there's a counter, tract to get him right. I think one of the things that struck me was that there is good work already going on in schools, as we know, but it does need strengthening, boosting, and probably more training and investment. But I think there is now, I just haven't had the strategy long, a course available for young men who are worried about their own behaviour. If you are in that position right now, you would have no idea where to go, what to do, who to talk to.
Yeah, it's about a pathway to kind of seeking help,
It
isn't it?
certainly is, and that's very well thought through.
Well, on just a different kind of topic on this, I don't know if you saw what I put to the Minister, though. I mean, there's also continuing concerns about the criminalisation of women in the sense that I think it's 3/4 of women in prison have been victims
68%.
68% have been victims of domestic violence of one form or another. And again, is that being properly dealt with? Is there a proper plan to try and... no one's saying this is easy, but is there a plan to deal with that?
I mean, so it is, as you said, 67% of women in prison have suffered domestic abuse or sexual abuse. A very large proportion of them were suffering domestic abuse when they committed their offences.
Yeah.
So they've had much worse things done to them than they have actually done themselves. And they have multiple and complex needs which are not met in prison at all. So certainly we've got to cut back. And I am on the Women's Justice Board, which I think was being talked about earlier, and we are working very hard to cut back the imprisonment of women. But we will need, and there are some quite good things in the strategy, so there is going to be independent legal advice for victims of rape, who obviously often themselves get so disoriented that they can offend in due course, traumatised people. But we will ultimately need a defence for women who suffer coercion through coercive control, through domestic abuse, just as we need one for victims of grooming gangs, just as we have one for victims of modern slavery. We will need to work on that defence.
There is a model there, as you say. OK, Vera, we really appreciate your time this evening here on Sky News. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. OK, you're watching the Politics Hub. Up next, the Bank of England has cut its interest rates today to the lowest level in nearly 3 years. But what does it mean for the economy in the year ahead? Ed Conway will tell us all. Stay tuned. You're watching the Politics Hub now. Let's turn to the Scottish Parliament, which tonight's been rocked by allegations that an SNP MSP was bugged by a member of their own office. An extraordinary story this. Our Scotland correspondent Conor Gillis has more. Conor, talk us through what you know.
Yeah, good evening, Darren. These revelations today made public are certainly being described as jaw-dropping. First revealed in the Scotsman newspaper, who allege a series of claims centering on a female SNP member of the Scottish Parliament, an incident that was said to have unravelled in 2023. And the central allegation is that a male staffer of that MSP planted a recording device in her own office. That man, the allegation is, was then moved on and got a new job with an SNP MP. Now, Sky News so far has not been able to independently verify the specific allegations. However, I have had a conversation with a senior SNP source who has knowledge of these events, and they have said, quote, this is 100% true. The staff in question have had to deal with counselling and received counselling as a result of these traumatic events. And they are saying that the MSP in question is well respected, and there is a great sense of shock among the ranks at Holyrood in Edinburgh. Now, there has been reaction today from Scotland's First Minister, the SNP leader, current leader, John Swinney. He says this is completely and utterly unacceptable. Now, MPs and MSPs, they're essentially employers in themselves. They hire the staff, they're responsible for them and all the rest of it. But I think tonight, Darren, there are questions for the SNP. What did they know back in 2023 and the years since then leading up to this moment? Apparently, we understand that this man is now associated with an SNP association, a local association, potentially even an office bearer there. So there are questions swirling. Also, why on earth did this man get rehired after this drama involving an alleged spy cam in one of these offices? And why were the police not called in at that point in time? These are all questions that we have put to the SNP this evening, and so far there has not been a response.
OK, Conor, thank you very much indeed. Conor Gillis there, live for us tonight. Now, there was a bit of Christmas cheer for the Chancellor and householders today as the Bank of England cut interest rates from 4 to 3.75%. It is the sixth cut since last summer, and it's the lowest level in almost 3 years. But what does 2026 hold? Ed Conway's got out his crystal ball.
So the Bank of England has just cut interest rates down from 4% to 3.75%, so not really a surprise there. But I want to show you, that's just the standard interest rates chart. I want to show you another chart, one which, if you dig beneath it, tells you quite a lot about what's going on, and a kind of unexpected look at this, a familiar data point. This is inflation. It is the key number that the Bank of England's spending a lot of time focusing on because it needs to get it down to that line, 2%. But here's the thing, OK, so inflation is just a shopping basket of goods and services, typical stuff we buy, and it's the rate at which those prices are changing each year. But you can break it down by looking at how much stuff is coming from overseas. And if you do that, things get kind of interesting. Have a look at this, OK? So this is showing you inflation going back the last few years, and the darker the colours are, the more of that stuff was imported. I mean, that's energy. So some of energy is domestic, but most of that's imported. And then you can see as things get lighter, they're made domestically. So we import a lot of stuff in this country. And actually, during the period of the cost of living crisis, when inflation went up into double digits, here's what's interesting. Look at how much of that is dark. That is inflation that we brought in from overseas. So stuff we imported got more expensive really quickly. And as a result, inflation got higher. And here's what is maybe reassuring but maybe worrying for the Bank of England. Just kind of roll on to kind of where we are right now. So this is the last few months. And what you can see is, look at what's happened to the dark. That's kind of gone down a lot, hasn't it? Actually, in recent months and years, it's been negative. The real thing that's been driving inflation recently is domestic, good old British inflation. And the worry for the Bank of England is, in theory, it should be able to control this, but in practice, that's been getting higher and higher. In other words, people in the UK have been expecting prices to go up and have been setting prices higher and higher. And, you know, if that stays high for a long time, well, interest rates might stay high for longer than people had expected. And that's part of the reason why the Bank of England thinks interest rates, they're coming down a bit more, but maybe not as low as they have been in recent years.
Ed Conway there with his analysis. Let's get Dawn and Daisy's now. Dawn, the thing about interest rates is, it's always a double-edged sword. It's also a reflection in some ways they're being brought down because actually overall the economy's not doing that well.
Well, I mean, it's complex, right? And I'm not an economist, but interest rates coming down for the first time since 2023 is actually a good thing for people who have mortgages. OK, those not on fixed rates. But remember, after the Liz Truss budget, that went through the roof. It meant people had less money to spend. It meant that our economy suffered, right? So when you've got just ordinary people that have more money in their pocket, they spend it locally and that improves our economy. So I think you have to look at it in sections. So I think this is actually a good thing. I think the analysis with the Bank of England is quite interesting. I think that there's going to probably need to be some reassessment to how the relationship between the Bank of England and the government works, because there's all the stuff that's coming in around pensions. It's a very complex picture. But ultimately, I think, as I say, I think people will feel this and it will help with the cost of living crisis.
Daisy?
Inflation is still too high. And as Ed was saying there, domestic inflation is the problem. And I think one of the reasons for that is because the economy is doing very badly. And business confidence and consumer confidence are very bad. I'm afraid that this government has put in quite a lot of policies that have damaged that policy. They've damaged business confidence with the amount...
Unemployment's on the way up?
Unemployment's on the way up. There's been a huge amount of damage and people can't really see a silver lining. So, yes, or they can't see a light at the end of the tunnel, rather. So, yes, of course, anyone with a mortgage is going to be happy, a little tiny bit happy. But the other thing that sticks in the craw is this government constantly saying, we're doing so well with the economy because, look what's happening with interest rates. Well, interest rates have nothing to do with the government. Just ever since Gordon Brown gave the bank its independence. And so you cannot do that and then constantly say, yes, all these other figures might be bad, but interest rates are coming down, so hooray for us.
OK, it's a very complex figure, but I'd say overall, while this is good for households, on the whole, it's a reflection the economy is struggling, to put it mildly. Right, for the moment, we're going to pause there because we want to have some fun. It is our last programme before Christmas here on the Politics Hub. And up next, as a box of Christmas cards has triggered a lockdown in Westminster. By the way, that is not a festive joke. It really did happen today. We'll be looking at some of the other seasonal wishes that we've seen from politicians that have caused a fright of a different kind. After the...
Coming up on the UK Tonight at 8 o'clock, we'll discuss the government's new strategy for tackling violence against women and girls. Also ahead, UK actors moving a step closer to industrial action over the threat of artificial intelligence. And King Charles is taught the art of the perfect pour. All that and much more on the UK Tonight from 8.
It's like a football final with only one team on the pitch. This isn't just a call to vote, but a call to remember. The freedom fought for by the African National Congress.
I'm Yusra Al-Bagher, Sky's Africa correspondent based in Johannesburg, South Africa.
A cyclone and 2 burst dams wiped out hundreds of generational homes.
This was the second dam that the floodwaters hit before it tore into Derna. We are in the heart of Nairobi, and we're watching as protesters were heavily tear gassed.
The sheer fearlessness and persistence of these guys is astonishing.
We help you understand the world with us. I remember going into the iconic Omdurman market in the heart of Sudan's capital for the first time since the war started. And this is what's left of it. Bullet holes through buildings, shelled balconies, bullet cases on the floor. I witnessed the complete destruction of a place linked to my childhood memories and the lives of millions of people. This is insane. This was a bustling residential area. So many friends who lived here. My most memorable interview was with a 15-year-old boy who'd survived being stranded on a migrant boat on its way from Senegal to the Canary Islands.
After 13 days, our food, water and fuel supply ran out.
I felt awe when we saw the mountain gorillas in Rwanda.
They call him the king of the jungle. This is the alpha silverback.
Sky News. Get the full story first. Yusra Al-Bagher, Sky News.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter? Perfect. Let's bring you some breaking news. Being a Sky News presenter. I began by asking,
thank you so much,
trusting us to tell her story. The battle for number 10. Sky News has been given exclusive access. Let me give you a sneak peek. It was the day those present would never forget. Why did you decide to open up and tell your story?
Welcome back to the Politics Hub. As I say, it is our last show before Christmas. Now, today, and this is not a joke. Very good, very good. We'll come to that in a second. All we want to let you know is that a minister might have made this year's Westminster naughty list today after a box of unattended Christmas cards triggered genuinely a lockdown today. Police swung into action when they were alerted to a suspicious package near Victoria Tower, which is just across the road from where we are sitting right now, with the bomb squad deployed. But after a controlled explosion, it turned out that the item was actually a box of Christmas cards featuring a festive gingerbread man. Sky News was able to access the box after the police cordon was lifted and discover the box bear the name of a minister. Well, on that note, we have got together our wonderful panel, including John Craig, and a glass of Prosecco. John's so very disappointed that his glass is very small. We'll come on in a second. Cheers. We want to talk about Christmas cards now because we've obviously had quite a few over the years from politicians. Let's have a look at some of the more remarkable ones. And we all remember this one, of course, don't we? This is Tony and Cherie Blair from maybe 15 years ago, 17 years ago, behind John Craig. And it's the fixed grin smiles, isn't it?
It's sort of hostage.
Well, they're staring into your soul.
Yeah, they really are.
It's very intentional.
You know what year it was?
I was trying to work that out, John. I mean, maybe it's 20 years ago. I mean, he was Prime Minister, wasn't he?
Yeah, I remember that card.
Yeah, for sure. I think I got that card. I got that card.
Yeah.
I definitely got that card.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
I think it's not the worst one in the world, but it does feel like the worst. Well, have a look at this one. This one's from the United States, and my word, it reflects a different type of politics. I mean, you could just never imagine that in the UK, could you?
Thank God.
Yeah.
No.
Thank God. It's the cheesy grins.
It's awful.
I thought when I first saw that one,
and the guns.
I thought well, it's a cheesy grin above it. I thought it was AI. I didn't think it was real.
Really?
I thought it was a joke.
It was when it was all that talk around the gun lobbies and the gun laws, and it was like, we need to restrict gun sales. They're like, no, we don't. Look at this.
So I have to be honest here. I have never made my own Christmas card. I do know someone who has over the years. John, what is the secret to a good Christmas card, would you say?
It's got to be funny, I think. If you're going to do a photo, Mrs. Craig and I have done some funny ones over the years. We haven't done one this year, actually. But, most MPs actually get I don't know if Dawn does this, get a local or schools in the constituency to have a competition, don't they? Get children to design one, and they pick the best one. Have you done that?
Well, I don't pick it because that's just disaster. But I get the mayor to pick it. We've got the youngest mayor, Ryan the Hack, at the moment, and he picked my winning Christmas card this year. But can I just say, for the minister, and we've all had our stories of parcels that don't get delivered, or they said it's been delivered, or it's in the bin, under the bin, or in the bin under the car. I spoke to the minister today with the Christmas cards, and what happened was because the security wouldn't let them deliver the Christmas cards, they just left it.
Well, I mean, it's like leaving it down the road as orphan home. Right, let's look at this Christmas card. This is from the US presidents, Donald Trump and Melania Trump. And I think given what Donald Trump's done to the Oval Office, this is actually quite tasteful, I might suggest.
It's quite classy.
Is that this year's?
I think
it's
it
not
is,
this year's. Is it? No.
Well,
he looks a bit slimmer, I have to say.
Yeah, I don't think this year. That's this year's. Yeah.
Talking about odd Christmas cards, let's have a look at the next one. This is Andrew Lee, and it's a great Christmas card because, as you say, it's quite funny, John. Look at that kid on the left-hand side. does not want to be
Somebody's annoyed. Somebody's annoyed him. What do they do?
Yeah.
But is his right? Is his right to not participate if he doesn't want to?
The thing is, though, who sends Christmas cards these years?
Yeah, I haven't sent one. I think, and every year they get smaller and smaller. The numbers dwindle.
I remember when I grew up as a kid, my parents' house was adorned with Christmas cards. I mean, it was just every day there'd be. These days you go home, it's like maybe a dozen at the most.
But people send them electronically now, don't they, as emails or whatever, don't they?
But I do. This year I made an effort to send some, and I got loads as well of Christmas cards. And I don't know, there was
It's 'cause
something.
you're popular.
There was something. Thank you, John. Very kind. I think there's something nice about that as well, because I think so much stuff's done online. I think it's nice to have something.
It does feel more personal. We have to look at one more one, John, if we can. You'll know this guy.
I was only going to say to Dawn if you had one from the Prime Minister.
I don't know, actually. I better have. I've got a whole pile. I better have.
Look at this one from Nick Clegg with Miriam, his wife. Again, I think that's quite cute, isn't it?
I think that's quite cute. Yeah, I think that's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, at least that trend, you know, that trend where you'd get a great big A4 sheet of paper inside the Christmas card with, you know, every detail of what's happened to that family in that year.
Oh, yes, we've had a few of those.
Little Mary got a gold star for this. Blah, blah, blah. Like, is this essay ever going to end? I'm quite glad that's a thing of the past.
John, what are you trying to say about the Prime Minister, actually, by the way? We get on very well, I have you know.
John got a...
We do keep hearing that he never talks to his MP. Well, until recently, he started, hasn't he?
Let's end on a very festive note, and I do want to say Merry Christmas to one and all, to you guys, and to you, John. I think it's been quite an interesting year, it must be said, politically.
Yeah, you're not wrong there.
2026 could be more interesting.
Well, that's the thing. We thought this is way more interesting than we thought politically. Next year could be more the same.
Who will be the Prime Minister sending Christmas cards next year?
Very good.
Keir Starmer. It'll be Keir Starmer.
Dawn, Daisy, thank you so much. Thank you for watching the Politics Hub this year. From all the team, have the best Christmas ever. We will see you in January. Goodbye and Merry Christmas.
Cheers. Merry Christmas.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
They call him the king of the jungle.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Yusra Al-Baghir has this report.
And this is what's left of it.
As a woman of colour, how did the Harris campaign speak to you?
People risk their lives to speak to us for this report.
Mr. Zuma, Sky News.
We're trying to see as much as we can.